Why is absentee voting not allowed in Taiwan, and why is it so controversial?
Absentee voting has been one of these long discussed issues in Chinese politics, and how the political parties stand on that diverges based on the pan blue and pan green camps. There's been a lot of concern, for example, regarding that there are many Taiwanese living in China. And during elections, with the hope that they will vote in support of the KMT or pan blue parties, the Chinese government increases the number of flights between Taiwan and China around the time of elections or before the time of elections. And so the fear is then that if there was absentee balloting, this would lead to Taishang, this group of Taiwanese businessmen that are working in China, usually businessmen, voting as a bloc for pro-China policies. And so the DPP has been more opposed to this, whereas the KMT is more in favor of this.
Why you think both the KMT and TPP are pushing for this now? Um, will this benefit either of their groups in some way?
The KMT sees itself as likely to benefit, but I kind of wonder to what extent that is based on an outmoded view of the world. Because, as I mentioned, I don't think actually Taishang are the most dominant group now or the most numerous. And so I'm not sure if actually the KMT is working on the right frame here, a current frame, something it might be working on an outdated view of the situation. The TPP, on the other hand, I think it's actually just proposing a lot of ideas all at once. For example, despite that there are all these concerns regarding election interference, their vice presidential candidate, Cynthia Wu, called for online voting, and that was how they proposed absentee ballots. Not even in the forms of paper, for example, but in terms of online systems. And of course, there's all these concerns about hacking and disinformation and falsification of identity. And so it's actually kind of unusual that you would actually call for electronic voting just to take place online. When, for example, we have all these polls that are conducted online, they're criticized as unscientific and meant to influence the elections.
And what about the DPP? Would they support this policy?
I think probably not, but then the DPP will have to make concessions to appear democratic. It really wants to avoid the accusation that's infringing upon or violating the democratic process or trying to disenfranchise certain people from the vote. What's interesting is there are some cases under the Tsai administration when there were people that were disenfranchised from the vote. For example, during COVID, with the large amount of people that were quarantined in the 2022 election cycle. And the government would refuse to make measures for them, even though there are calls to stagger the times for people to come in or have another voting day just for people that were under quarantine and things like that. And so the EPP has been pretty reluctant to make any moves, actually. And so going as far as absentee ballots, I think it's quite unlikely.